or the ever-present daily dust, each bearing signed orders from some higher officer or other. Depot 14B stood at a crossroads on the busy routes from Aelia Capitolina to Ascalonia and from Hebron to Antipatris, and was reputedly the busiest of all the military depots in the region. A constant flow of armaments, building materials, foodstuffs, wine and raw ores arrived from the south and east, delivered with dockets from other centurions, only to sit in the Judean sun for days, until they were collected by other carts and carried north to the war zone. Mostly, anyway. Like all the other auxiliary units in Judea, and indeed all the local legions, the first Sebastanorum had thrown in their lot with the usurper, Pescennius Niger, and the entire east had immediately organized into a network of supply routes and depots, carrying everything needed up to Antioch, where it could be distributed to the armies that worked in the north to halt the aggression of Severus, who had claimed Rome with his Pannonian legions. Fulvius had been about to refuse and declare his own allegiance to Severus, when he watched what happened to another centurion who did just that, and promptly shut his mouth and kept his thoughts to himself. Similar courses apparently had played out across most military units, until only those loyal to Niger remained. Few outside this compound knew Fulvius's true allegiance, of course. Few knew that supplies were being misplaced and squirreled away in caches, ready for a counterattack by Severus's supporters. Few knew that the convoys that were being ambushed upon leaving Depot 14B were the result of times and locations being passed to secret sources in a village nearby, where they could make it as far as Aelia Capitolina. Few knew that secret caches were now to be found all the way from Antioch to Alexandria, waiting for the armies of Severus to push back. Because Niger was doomed. Fulvius had seen the writing on the wall the very moment the cohort had taken the oath to him. He knew Severus. He'd even met the man, and had served under him for years, knowing the man's mettle and strength. He knew the Pannonian legions, too. He knew that however tough the armies out here might think themselves, they were like children beside the battle-hardened border legions of Pannonia. Pannonia. Fulvius's home. How he longed for its cool and its lush greenery. He had entertained a certain distrust of the men of this unit when first assigned a year ago, transferred from his homeland to this arid place, for everyone knew that Judeans were trouble. They'd revolted against Rome repeatedly and refused to recognize the emperor's divinity, and the first Sebastanorum had been raised and continually recruited locally. Yet his fears had soon been allayed. The first may have been recruited in the region, but they were drawn from Syrian Sebast and with not a Judean among them. Of course, that made them rather unpopular in the area, but you couldn't have everything. At least they took the oath to the divine emperor, albeit a different one every other month since the fall of Golden Commodus. "Horses!" called a man over by the single gate, leaning out from his fighting platform and pointing off to the east. Fulvius rubbed his neck, wondering what this morning's convoy would bring. Not ore, he hoped. Already perhaps a tenth of the compound space was given over to raw materials in stacks, and ore was heavy and troublesome, and not a commodity he could so easily divert to one of the hidden stores. "How many carts? Can you see yet?" Often they couldn't quite identify such details until the convoy was almost at the gate. In Pannonia, the winters were often bitterly cold and icy, but they were either in white-out blizzard conditions when everyone stayed indoors, or clear and crisp with good visibility. Judea was a different proposition entirely. Even now, not long after the new year, once the mist had burned off, the heat was comfortable, and the dust that blew up from the arid roads created a semi-permanent haze. The constant traffic of the two trade routes meant hooves and feet kicking up clouds of grey most of the time. "No carts, sir," the soldier bellowed back in his strong Syrian accent. "Just horses." Fulvius frowned. Not a convoy, then. Riders. His heart skipped for a moment as he considered the possibility that someone in authority had uncovered the depot's inconsistencies and the supplies going missing. His true loyalties revealed would lead to a very unpleasant and highly public end, and given the complicity of many of the men of this century, he would not be alone either.